dismissal of a public employee or to hear complaints about them. You can have a closed session for pending litigation, and you can have a closed session regarding labor negotiations. Now, that is something that you can have a closed session for. If you're involved in contract negotiations, you can have somebody from the negotiating team come and talk to you in a closed session and tell you what's going on, keep you up to date. That's a reason, a practical reason for you to have a closed session. Okay, now we're getting down to the penalties and remedies. So this is my lawyer thinking right here. It always sounds a little strange to people. Frankly, if you violate the Brown Act, not very much bad is going to happen. Not very much bad is going to happen. Most violations, if you have this meeting in secret, most of the time, you know, unless there's some really bad thing, they don't want to put the resources into fooling with this. If you have a meeting, even if you totally blatantly violate the Brown Act, probably what they're going to say is, have a meeting, properly notice it, put it on the agenda, have your conversation in public about it, and take your vote. And then you've cured that previous violation of the Brown Act. But somebody can go to court. If this is like regularly you're doing this, somebody can go to court and get an injunction against you. Very unlikely. But, you know, for blatant violations, it's there. And attorney's fees. So the agency can be billed for the attorney's fees of the people who pay lawyers to go to court. It can be a crime. It can be a crime. I'm sure that it's happened before, but it happens so rarely that nobody knows of a time when it happened, unless you go back and look at the actual legal cases. If you take an action and you intend, important word, intend, to deprive the public of information, and you know or have reason to know the public is entitled to the information. So if you say, you know what, I don't give a damn about this Brown Act. We're going to figure this out right now, and we're going to take care of it. And I know the public's invited, but I want to deal with this issue, and we're just going to go ahead and do it. Well, that can be a crime, a misdemeanor. Misdemeanor means publishable by a fine or less than a year in prison. I don't mean to scare people by that. The first thing I told you is the most important. Not much bad's going to happen. They'll just tell you to fix it. So my last slide is, this is a disclaimer. This presentation is intended to be a general overview of the Ralph M. Brown Act and should not be relied on as legal advice, because I didn't really want to give you guys, even though I'm a former lawyer, you know, I wanted to hit the high points here. I wanted to give you the basic stuff that you needed to know. I've paraphrased the statutes in many cases, and there are lots of things that cover all different kinds of legislative bodies. I just stuck with the ones that had to do with advisory committees. And the very last slide is additional resources. Now, I noticed that, you know how when they have a computer reference, a URL on something that it's in a different color and it gets underlined? Well, the color that this happened to be in didn't come out very well on your thing there. But I've given you, there's a wonderful guide here put out that's accessible to lay people by the League of California Cities that gives very good examples and very good discussion. I recommend it, and there's a reference to it here, a URL for it. There's I gave you a website where you can get information from the Attorney General and a copy of the Act itself, and another reference to a big 100-page thing from the Attorney General's office. And most of that, if you go and do a Google search or something like that, and you type in the Ralph M. Brown Act or just Brown Act, these things are going to come up for you and you'll be able to find them. If you want me to, if you care about it, if you think you're going to care about it, I'll make sure that I write on your thing the proper URL, because I couldn't read it myself. Okay, so Amy gave me a 3-minute warning. I think I'm actually over. It's about 12:04 right now. But I would like to ask if there are any additional questions. And I do offer, I'm going to be here for the rest of the meeting. And I do invite you to come up and speak to me if you have personal things that you were curious about, but you didn't want to raise them in this session. So any more questions? Okay. Thank you. And again, thank you for your service.